Hello! In this video, I'm going to show you my absolute favorite way of doing short rows. There are many different methods that you can use for short rows. For example, the wrap and turn method. I don't really like that method because depending on how loose or tightly you knit, sometimes the wrap stitches will show. So this is my favorite way of doing it, and there's no wrapping, no turning, and it's just a smooth, easy way of doing wrap stitches without even having to keep tracks of where your last stitch was, so that you can just continue on with your work. So we're going to go ahead and knit the number of stitches that that you need it to before you start your wrap stitches. So I'm just going to go ahead and knit a few stitches in. So basically what you would do is you will knit to the last stitch required. So let's say your pattern said you need to knit 70 stitches before you wrap and turn. You would knit to the 70th stitch, and then you would follow these steps to start your short row stitches. So I'm not even counting right now. I'm just going to go right to where I feel is a good stopping mark. And that looks pretty good to me. So just slip that. So what I'm going to do now is I got to the stitch where I want to stop and start my short row stitches. So it's always going to be 2 stitches before the last wrap stitch, supposedly. In this case, we're not wrapping. What I do, I take a stitch marker, I mark the next 2 stitches, so I put that on there, slide that off your needle, and just close that, and you flip it over. No wrapping, just mark your stitches and flip it over. Then you would slip the first stitch, and you would purl all the way back. In this particular method, we're just going to do stockinette stitch. So you just do your normal purling all the way back. No fancy footwork or anything else, just straight purling. Just remember that you have to slip the first stitch. You don't purl that stitch. Okay, we got to the end. We turn it around as if you're ready to knit again. Now this one, you knit your first stitch as per usual. I always like to knit my first stitch to the back of the loop. That tightens up the first stitch. So basically you're going to knit this now to the last 2 stitches before your last marked stitch. And it will always be 2 stitches before your last marked stitch. One more to go. And again, what you're going to do, that's 2 stitches before the last marked stitch. I'm just going to pick up the 2 stitches with my stitch marker, slide it off the needle, lock that up. Now I have 2 drop stitches, basically, if that's what you would like to call it. And then I do the same thing. Again, you just slip the first stitch as if to purl, but you don't really purl that stitch. And again, you go all the way back. The reason it's called short rows is basically that's what it is. You're basically shortening the rows. You're not really decreasing. It's not the same as decreasing. What you're in essence doing is that you temporarily put the unknitted stitches on hold. while you work the other stitches. So you're creating really almost like a hill. That's what and you'll see in a minute. What you're going to do is you're going to have a series of stitches that continue to go up like that because you've actually stopped knitting these 2 stitches, but you've already knitted 2 more rows. You've stopped knitting these 2 stitches, and you repeat that. So eventually you'll get a slope. And then once you've done that, or you've reached the number of short row stitches that you needed to get to, you'll start to come back down, and it will you'll level yourself back up to this level, and then you'll continue knitting, and you'll see the results a little later on. So now basically you're going to repeat this way of knitting. You would knit right to the last 2 stitches before the last marked stitch. You do the same thing. You put those 2 stitches on the stitch marker, drop them off, and then purl your way back. So go ahead and do that, and we'll be back in just a few seconds after I've picked up the rest of the stitches. So in this case, I'm just going to do 9 stitches, and we'll continue on that way.